state public policy panel. It's great to be in Conway. My wife is actually working right now about 1,000 yards that or 100 yards that way at UCA, where she's a professor. So it's great to be here and see so many friends. At the panel, we have a take on education reform, in particular, of trying to enhance opportunities for all students across the state to learn. And one of the ways we think of the dropout rate is that, frankly, the problem started much, much earlier. And the problem needs to be addressed much earlier. And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take the corporate community. It's going to take parents. It's going to take educators. And that there's not a magic bullet. There's not a single solution. And that no one has all the answers. And so that's kind of the way that we approach the problem from the outset. We think that Arkansas has a huge education problem that's literally robbing us of our potential. Millions of dollars of lost economic opportunity because of underperforming students across the state, and needlessly, there are solutions. Too many students don't even have access to a high-quality education system still in Arkansas, even after the Lakeview reforms. We've made a lot of progress, but we have a lot more to go. And that's especially true for low-income students and students of color. Low-income students make up a majority of students in Arkansas schools. So we're talking about a majority of students who are lacking equal access to a great opportunity to learn. We know that that can change. It's changed before. We've made progress. There's a lot of people who are naysayers who say it's an intractable problem, that, those kids, whoever those kids are just never going to get it. And we're just going to focus on the ones that can. And that's wrong-headed, wrong thinking all the way. There are solutions. The solutions have been proven before, and we have already made a lot of progress in Arkansas. We need to keep building on what we know works and keep growing. So our goal is to make sure that every student in Arkansas has the opportunity to learn in a great education system. And you'll note that I say great education system because it's beyond the schools. The school can do so much. The parents have to do a lot. The family has to do a lot. The community has to do a lot. And the business community has to do a lot to provide this comprehensive opportunity to learn. Now, I say we think that everybody should have a great education system. Well, what does that mean? We have kind of 8 defining characteristics of what we think make up a great education system. The first is parent, student, and community participation and partnership. There's participation and partnership with the education system. There's a lot of places where that's not happening. Paid time off I'd love to hear you say that. I wish that we could make that more universal across the state and across more employers. The hours that events occur oftentimes exclude working parents. And so there's a lot of reasons to involve parents more. Our organization was actually formed 48 years ago by moms of school-age kids working on desegregation in the Arkansas public school system. So this is kind of in our DNA to be focused on parent and community involvement. The second key ingredient is access to high-quality early childhood education. Again, here Arkansas deserves enormous credit for making huge strides of making pre-K accessible to every child in the state within 150% of the poverty line. It's an enormous step forward. There are still students in Arkansas who can't access that because of transportation, because of geography, and so those issues need to be addressed. There's also a lot of students in Arkansas who would benefit tremendously by having access to early childhood education at an even earlier age. And this early childhood education is one of the single most cost-effective, proven methods for enhancing opportunities to learn and improving future education outcomes, including lowering the dropout rate. The third ingredient of an excellent education system is effective teachers, administrators, and school structure, such as highly trained and also culturally competent. By highly trained, we mean that they have the board certifications. They're actually certified to be teaching the subjects in which they're teaching. And again, especially in rural places, especially in low-income places, they have less access to highly experienced teachers, highly certified teachers. And then the cultural competency is really critical. We did a survey of over 550 parents of color in South Arkansas, and over 80% of them felt like their kids' teachers were not treating their students fairly because of the color of their skin. Now, you can argue whether that's true or not true, and we could get into that debate, but the bottom line is that is the perception of a large number of parents and families of color, and that has to be addressed. Geography also matters when it comes to cultural competency. There's a large difference between urban communities and rural communities, and being able to speak to a student as a peer, as someone from the community, really helps them make that click into learning a lot easier. And then lastly, the class of a teacher compared to the student, and I mean economic kind of background and heritage, all those sorts of things, all of that matters. And so developing more teachers locally in the communities where they live is a key element of improving cultural competency and, frankly, getting more highly certified teachers in rural, hard to recruit to places. Teachers from the community are far less likely to leave after they get a couple years experience in the better job offer from Memphis or Dallas or wherever. The fourth ingredient is college and career preparatory curriculum for all students. And here I mean all students. In many places, we don't have effective remediation. Once a student, we're doing great for the students who never fall behind, but the students who fall behind are never effectively brought back up to the level that they were. It's an issue that we have to address. There are solutions. We just have to invest in them. VOTEC education in Arkansas has fallen far behind where the business community needs it to be. You're being trained in a lot of VOTEC programs. There are exceptions, but in a lot of VOTEC programs in Arkansas, you're still being trained for a job that existed in 1970. We've got to start developing jobs for the 2010s to the 2020s and the 2030s. And again, there's solutions to that. And special education on this issue can't be a dead end. For a lot of kids, they get put in special ed and suddenly they're off the career track, they're off the higher education track, and where are they left? And they're left in those communities in kind of a dead end. We've got to address the special education needs in Arkansas much more seriously. The fifth element of an excellent education system, sufficient funding. This costs money. Arkansas has a particular challenge with raising new revenue because of the constitutional elements of the way our tax code was written. But you have to have sufficient funding in the education system. We made huge steps forward as a result of Lakeview, but frankly, some of the tax policies proposed in recent legislative sessions threaten that. And so we need to be vigilant and make sure the investments that have been made continue to be made, and that we continue making smart investments in the proven strategies that we know would make a difference moving forward. The next sixth element of a great education system is effective interventions. And here what we mean is after school and summer programs is, again, it's proven. It works. We know it works. It works almost as well as pre-K, but we're not investing in Arkansas. It's happening snapshot or scattershot. It's happening where there's corporate investors willing to invest, where there's a strong community willing to invest, but there's a lot of communities locked out of after school and summer programs in Arkansas. We took a big policy step forward in the last legislative session, thanks to the work of the Out of School Network, to create the infrastructure for that. Now we have to fund that infrastructure and make sure that every kid in Arkansas has access to after school programs and summer programs. The other kinds of effective interventions that Arkansas already has the money for is we have what's called poverty funding, which every school gets extra bonus funding that's designed to go for students that are below the poverty line or on free and reduced lunch to help them and boost their education achievements. This money has not been spent effectively in many districts. It has not been spent at all in some districts. This is an enormous opportunity. We've already created the funding. We've already taken the tax money to pay for it. Arkansas needs to use this money much better, and we can make a lot of progress with funding that we already have in the bank. The next most important intervention is access to higher education. So the El Dorado promise just warms my heart. I wish we could make it the Arkansas promise. It's such a barrier in Arkansas. My wife teaches at UCA, and she sees it all the time with students who are working 2 and 3 jobs just to try to put themselves through college. It's a major barrier, and it's especially a barrier for undocumented students. So passing the DREAM Act is a major step forward to increasing this access. Someone said it earlier, the community that's here is not going away. A lot of these students have lived here since they were 2 and 3 years old. And to deny them access to higher education is cutting our nose off to spite our face. Or we could try to bite our nose off. The eighth and last kind of element of a great education system is community and family supports. Again, this goes beyond the education system. So we need families reading to their kids at 2 years old. The achievement gap at age 3 is nearly as large as it is at 8th grade. So there's something happening in the community and at the family level that needs to be addressed. And now you can choose to blame the parents and the families for saying, well, they're not doing what they need to do, but that's not a very productive way to start a conversation if you want someone to change. So we need to find a way of constructively engaging communities to get them doing more effective interventions at home and in the family and in the church and at the community level. And we need to help see what barriers of poverty, of transportation, what are the barriers that are keeping those families from engaging fully in the education system, and we need to help think of solutions to overcome those barriers. So 8 elements of an great education system. Can you buy that? Okay. So to support those 8 elements, we do have 3 core strategies that we're pursuing. The first is not going to surprise you. It's organizing parents and community members to be more involved in their school system. The way that the Arkansas Public Policy Panel works is we don't sit in an office and dream up policies that we think someone ought to pass someday. We work in communities, and community people across the state tell us what policies they think need to be passed, because we think people who live in a community and are dealing with the problems in the community have the right to figure out how to solve those issues, and frankly, they know better than anyone else what actually will work. I can't tell you how many things have been dreamed up in Little Rock that didn't work when they got to Camden. So that's the first element of our strategy. And I'll tell you a story. In one community in South Arkansas, we were working to bring parents together for a meeting with the superintendent. And the parent coordinator for the school system called us and said, "You don't need to have this meeting." And we said, "Yeah?" And she says, "Yeah, no, we had a meeting. It was 2 weeks ago, and 4 parents came out. They're just not interested. They're not going to care. You know those types of parents." And we said, "Well, we appreciate you think that, but we think we're going to go ahead and try, and we'd really appreciate it if the superintendent would show up to see who we turn out." There were 60 parents there on a Wednesday night to talk to that superintendent, and they held him there for 3 hours asking questions. And by the end, I think he realized that this is one of the biggest untapped resources in his community to help him move that education system in the direction that he wanted. So effective parent organizing is a key element. Now, there's a lot of barriers that keep parents from being involved effectively in the school system, and so that's a large part of our work, is to help parents get access to the information and overcome those other barriers that keep them from participating. The second strategy that we're pursuing is building an Arkansas Opportunity to Learn coalition. We have a lot of key partners: Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families, the Out of School Network, the State Teachers Association, the Rural Community Alliance, and then grassroots partners across the state. We've been working at the state capitol as a coalition to push on policies that address those 8 elements of a great education, because again, we think every student in the state deserves access to a great education system. And then the third part of our strategy is research and development of model policies and practices. You know, I have a broad background in a lot of different kinds of policy areas in education reform, and I have a bit of a science background, and education reform has me scratch my head all the time. It's one of the most ideological, landmine-filled areas of policy that I've ever seen, where ideology trumps information every day, all the time. We need solid, research-based strategies that we can invest in and that we know will work. They're there. We need to do more research, but we need to drop the ideology at the door and start pushing on solutions that we know will actually work. And so that's our strategy. We would embrace any of you that like to be involved. We have a team of organizers working in communities across the state, and then our state coalition working at the state capitol is moving important progress. And again, we know this works. We've already made a lot of progress in Arkansas through the Lakeview ruling and some policy development since then. Our coalition has successfully moved legislation, and at the local level, we've made substantive changes to local school policy because of the work of our parents. So there's a feeling in a lot of corners in Arkansas that it's no use getting involved. You know, the folks tell me don't get involved who are in charge, and when I get involved, you know, the politicians are just going to be politicians. Well, we know that that's not true. We know that when we involve the whole community and we bring people together in a concerted effort that has an organized strategy behind it and information behind it, that we can win, because we do it every day. So thank you all for being here. It's great to see such a great and inspired group.
Thanks. Whoa. Thanks very much, Bill, for that. A couple of quick announcements.